Hi, Rai. Welcome to Sombor Terminal Festival.
Thanks.
Uh, when did you arrive? Did you have the time to see the town?
Yeah, I went for a beautiful walk this morning. I really love it here. I walked down the main street and through the parks and found some beautiful old buildings and took some photos, and already feel like I really love this town. I landed late last night from California, so I'm a little bit exhausted, but really happy to be here.
Jet lag.
Yeah, jet lagged.
We were following your Instagram today.
Oh, there you go. So you know.
Yeah, a lot of good photos.
You mean you were stalking me? Yeah.
Where is this guy?
Yeah.
So, is this your first time in this region?
First time in Serbia. I've been to Hungary and Croatia, and some of the surrounding countries, but first time here, and excited to be here.
Yeah. So, first time in Sombor.
Oh yeah.
Which is actually a small town.
Yes.
Yeah, we're so happy.
By far, first time in the country and first time here in Sombor as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about your life? We know that you
Yes.
grew up in Australia. And
Well, yeah. I mean, I grew up in Australia. I grew up on an island of 200 people, a really small island. We used to grow all of our own food. My mom's a yoga teacher. My dad's a kind of sustainable planner, I guess you would call it, permaculturist as well. So I grew up surfing and growing food and living a very simple life. And then I traveled around the world and eventually accidentally found myself in California.
how did that happen?
I was actually in Costa Rica surfing, and somebody saw me playing music in a hallway of a hotel, and then invited me back to California. So,
And that's where your career starts?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I try not to think of it as career. I try to think of it as just a continuum of life and experience and art. For me, that makes more sense because there's no real start and finish to an artist's life.
Yeah.
I don't have time off. It just depends how hard I'm creating or making work.
Do you tour a lot? How does your work life?
I don't tour as much as a lot of people, but I feel like I tour too much already. Touring is hard. It's beautiful to come to countries and play for people, but I do find the travel a little challenging at times. But I love to come and play for people, and when I'm not doing that, I'm just making music all the time, making art all the time. I have a bunch of different projects. There's Ryax, The Acid, Howling, different bands, and I just try to create and record and express myself as much as I can.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Acid project?
Yeah, sure. We're finishing a new record. It's me and a friend of mine, Adam Freeland, who was a DJ, quite well known over the years, and then another guy, Steve Nalepa, and we just found each other, and there was a really interesting synergy and connection between us, and we just we made an EP in a few days. We put it online. We didn't tell anybody what the project was, and we ended up kind of getting signed out of London before anyone knew who we were. So it was a really beautiful organic process, and I've been busy with Ryax, otherwise I would make a lot more music with the other projects, but
Is this
I'll get there.
more of an electronic music?
Yeah, some of it. I mean, for me, I know that there's distinct lines between what's electronic and what's organic, but for me, it all blends together. Like with all my projects, I use a lot of analog synthesizers and stuff with Ryax, but and then I play with orchestras as well. And with the Acid, it's a lot of synths and drum machines, but then it's all vocal led and songs and percussion and live instruments. So I think it's just how you put it together. I wouldn't define any of them solely as electronic or live. I think it's just all part of the same thing.
It's all art.
Yeah.
Is there a concept behind the two different, the Ryax and the Acid?
Well, yeah, it gets confusing sometimes. Ryax, The Acid, and there's Howling with Frank Wiedemann out of Berlin. So it's three main projects. Really, I just try to define it by who I'm in the room with. So if I'm in the room with Frank and where we've got, some gear running in a studio, then we're creating together, then I put it under that name. But I just love collaboration. I love to be free as an artist and to create with the different people I meet. and try not to put boundaries too much on sonically where it goes, artistically where it goes. You know, it's important to make the work first, and then make sure it's something you love, rather than getting caught up with your mind on what it should be.
Yeah. So with Frank, you're doing this festival in Berlin
Yeah.
in 2 days, right?
Yeah, we do Sacred Ground. It's mid-July. Yeah.
Oh,
So I fly out to play a bunch of other festivals around Europe, and then we've been doing that festival about the same time, 4 or 5 years now. Same as you guys know. How long is the festival here? 4 years?
Yeah.
4 years. Yeah. So pretty much the same. And we were just talking about it before. It's like a labor of love. You know, you don't make money. You don't. It's not about the accolades. It's just about creating a beautiful space where people can come and melt and have a really connected, unified experience together.
Is it in the wood?
It's on a little farm property near the Polish border, 2 hours north of Berlin. There's some lakes there, a lot of big fields. So there's a lot of swimming in the lakes, nature. Yeah, a lot of lying in the grass.
Same like here, you'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about your first big song, Berlin. Was it recorded in Berlin? Was it inspired by Berlin?
Yeah, it was right when I got back from Berlin. I was living in Berlin on and off for some years, and I did this recording session one day, and I walked in and I played this song once and recorded it live, and that was it. It wasn't too much thought around it. But it was a song that was really from my heart. It was about a relationship with a woman from Berlin. We were in a brief relationship, and the song really came from that experience. It was the middle of winter. It was freezing cold. I was wondering what I was doing in Berlin, why I wasn't eating mangoes on the beach in Australia, and why I was so far away from the roots of who I was as a person. And that polarity kind of created the seed of that song. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually the best works of art, I think, are created.
When you're really depressed and struggling, yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
That's true. So now what are your plans for the future? Are you going to work still on these 3 projects? Is it sustainable?
Is it sustainable is a good question. It's not always sustainable, but I think artists are people that don't necessarily always listen to the boundaries. You know, I work until early hours in the morning, go to sleep, wake up, go surfing, thinking about music, go back to music. It's almost an obsession to be an artist, I think. And I love creating with all the projects. I think my general plan is to try to finish albums with The Acid and Howling this year. So there's new music to put out for those projects. And then to go back to Ryax. Well, always with Ryax, but to go back into recording and writing early next year, and got some really beautiful big shows coming up with, there's one in London that I'm really excited about with the London Contemporary Orchestra at Royal Albert Hall. So these really beautiful moments to look forward to and create for, and just keep building, keep creating, and keep expanding as a person and as an artist as well.
Did you have some music education, or are you self-taught?
My music education was growing up in music. My dad played music. My dad had a lot of vinyl, a lot of records around. I learned to play guitar and some keys, but really a lot of it was self-taught. A lot of it came from just experience and listening to music and making mistakes and figuring out what I truly loved. Yeah. Yeah,
being inspired.
Yeah.
So, when you compare surfing and music, do you prefer one or the other, or is it
It's so different. I think a lot of people know me as a musician, as an artist, but I grew up surfing. I've surfed, since I was a little kid, since I was 3 years old, and did some competition. And I would say that the 2 things define my whole life. Every day I'm home, I surf. I spend time with the ocean. It's not just surfing; it's just having a union and a connection to the sea as well, like being a real waterman. I pretty much have to be in the ocean every day of my life when I'm home, and so that deep love of the ocean is a huge part of my life, and it obviously informs and influences my music. And then my music obviously pushes me in different ways. So I think they're really just two branches of the same tree. But yeah, I could probably walk away from music for a while, but I don't think I could ever walk away from the ocean. So maybe that's an interesting way to define it. Yeah.
So if you compare U.S. and Australia in terms of surfing,
Australia.
one's better.
Australia. Yeah. Well, it depends if you count Hawaii. You know, Hawaii's. I don't think of Hawaii as part of the U.S., but Hawaii's an amazing place and very special. You know,
We just came back.
yeah.
Where do you surf in Hawaii?
In Hawaii, I was over on Kauai on the North Shore. I was just
yeah.
over there, and I spend some time out there when I can. It's a really special
Me too.
island. Yeah.
Just a month ago, but
Special place.
we're not good at surfing.
That's okay.
We're trying.
You'll get there.
I'm from California, but not from the ocean. So.
Yeah, you'll get there. It takes a long time
Oh
surfing.
my god, yeah.
Yeah.
It takes being there every day, I guess.
Yeah, you have to build a relationship for years.
Yeah. So, where do you record? Do you have a studio at home?
Yeah, I have a really interesting studio at home. I have an old Airstream, an old silver Caravan. I don't know what you call them here, but in the US they're called Airstreams. You know about these. And I took everything out of it and kind of put all this beautiful wood inside and turned it into a recording studio. So I have a recording studio on my property.
On wheels?
Yeah. So I can drag it with my truck and park it
Yeah.
somewhere and record. And then I have a few other studios. There's one in Berlin with Frank. There's two other ones in LA that I work in. So there's quite a few studios and beautiful gear. I'm very lucky, you know. I have friends with amazing stuff, and I could just walk in and people open their studios to me. So
Yeah.
I feel honored. Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks,
for
guys.
the interview.
You're so welcome.
I hope, I'm sure we'll have a great time tonight.
Yeah, I think so.